What is the best video editing software for stop motion? Is a question I didn't need to ask, that is, until my editing machine is slowly turning from a toaster to a potato. Maybe this is a great opportunity to give another editing software a go. I thought, why don't I try the many free options out there on PC? So if you're looking for the best free video editing software that suits your skill level, this is the video for you. And if you're someone who prefers frame-by-frame sequence or image sequencing, we're going to cover that method as well, on top of the usual video file method of workflow. Now, I know the channel is known for high-octane stop-motion combat videos, so if you're here for that, feel free to skip this one, or stick around. You're not held to a gunpoint or anything like that, so... Abort, you've been seen. Now, there's a lot of free video editing software out there, but a lot of them comes with stipulation. To make things clear, we're going to narrow down the scope for our definition of free. First, it's got to be on PC, and I'll be using Windows. And it shouldn't require online connection when launching and whilst using the software. On top of that, the software should also doesn't come with a watermark, regardless if you can technically remove or disable them. And the reason being, because it may or may not be optional in the future as of making this video. Finally, it shouldn't have any strings attached, meaning no free trials or try before you buy type of software. Having a free version on its own is fine, but it cannot be time gated. There are many video editing software that fits into this list of criteria, but I want to take a look at them with a little more depth by giving them a go myself. So, following this criteria, I managed to find a few, and they are OPENSHOT, SHOTCUT, KDENLIVE, and finally, Blackmagic's design, DaVinci Resolve. And for full disclosure, I'm not affiliated, paid, or sponsored by any of them in any sort of way. To find out the best in our list, let's assign 3 levels of testing to determine which is the best for whom. On level 1, we're looking for how easy and intuitive it is for beginners, and especially the uninitiated, to learn on the go whilst using the basic and fundamental tools in video editing. Level 2 will be focusing on the more intermediate task and its ease of use for the intermediate users. And for the advanced users, we're assigning level 3 for the more advanced tools and features, which includes custom masking that you can make or draw yourselves. And to put them all to the test, I've animated 2 main short clips that we're going to test at every specific level. That is, if the software passes at every check. Alright, step 0, get yourself a PC. And when that's done, let's start with the first one in our list, OPENSHOT. Now, I'm a drag and drop kind of guy, so I'll be using that for all of them in the list. When launching OPENSHOT for the first time, we're welcomed with an introduction. It might not seem like much here, but if you have never seen this type of interface before, this really helps users to navigate the basic tools. For most beginner and especially the uninitiated, this will probably get you started with OPENSHOT. If you are familiar with any video editing softwares, you probably notice the simplicity of OPENSHOT's interface. With that simplicity, however, it comes with a few missing or at least appear to be hidden features such as sound levels or gauge that helps you monitor audio in your videos. Let's start from the beginning when starting a video project. On first glance, it appears it's easy to do so. Simply click on the icon on the top left or head to Files and start your new project. But what if you want a specific resolution or frame rate? Here's the first hurdle in my testing. It isn't exactly clear here, but you're supposed to click on the film strip icon on the top to change it for your project. I also didn't manage to find a way to customize the resolution and the frame rate, which isn't great for a stop motion project or any sort of complex resolution with a very specific frame rate of your preference. On the matter of using OPENSHOT, however, it's good enough, especially if all you're doing is something basic like making a compilation videos or some simple stop motion clips. So if you're a beginner with little to no video editing experience, this is a decent one to pick up and learn with. And because of that, it passes our level 1 check. For more precise and complex editing, however, you'll find a bit of struggle to do that with OPENSHOT. And what I mean by that is while OpenShot does give you some option to change the speed or rather duration of the clips forwards and back, it doesn't offer a precise change that suits your needs. Or at the very least, I couldn't find a precise way to do so during my hands-on testing. And it is for this reason and many more which I'll get into, using OpenShot can be finicky. On the surface level, OpenShot seems to be incredibly user-friendly. But when you're doing something that's tad more complex and needs a quick reset button or something, you'll get a sense that it'll gradually become less and less friendly to you. Take a look at this. In my attempt to mess around and transform this clip or frame, I unexpectedly distorted it. This can get really trippy really fast. And when I'm done messing around and find something that I want to stick with but need to reset it, I cannot find the reset button. In the end, I couldn't find one. So some of you might think, well, just hit Control Z or Z for Americans out there. While that is an option, mashing down Control Z isn't exactly the most exciting and hinders the editing flow. OpenShot really doesn't like to load multiple files, especially in a single import. And while OpenShot does recognize these images as a sequence and will ask you if you would like to treat it as that, it will have a difficult time processing them. And you won't have to do what I did here by manually inserting multiple frames into the timeline. And if you head to View Options on the top and select Advanced View option, you'll get a more in-depth view as well as an easy access to the Effects tab, which enables you to add layers of filters, chroma key or green screen, crop, etc. As you play back your footage on the preview window, you'll get a sense on how lightweight OpenShot is, especially for longer video files. Your experience may vary of course, but in my testing and other anecdotal experience online, the playback can be laggy, which isn't great for complex editing, especially if you have a massive file. So while it can do some level 2 in our criteria, it's not reliable for more comprehensive editing. What it cannot do is make custom masking, specifically to draw mask if you plan to remove an arm rig in OpenShot. For that reason, we cannot assess our level 3 criteria. As a video editing tool, it's incredibly barebone and, as mentioned before, lightweight, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. However, using it for more difficult tasks will be a struggle for many. Things like precise editing to fit a specific duration, precise timing, and even small things like previewing transition to see what they look like makes it difficult to recommend this for more and advanced users. Next, let's take a look at SHOTCUT. On initial launch, it's immediately down to business. There's a short text instructions on the left, basically telling you to drag and drop files in this window to get started. And at the center, you get to select a number of standard preset, resolution, and frame rate for your project. Or make one of your own with the custom option along with your preferred frame rate at the bottom, and you're off to the races. The initial experience using SHOTCUT is a bit mixed for me, and I'll explain why. Without changing any of the base interface, it's pretty much straightforward. The interface doesn't look too confusing if you're new to video editing, with the various icons that you can click on. Hovering on them without clicking shows a small description of what you can do with them. Top right corner has several text buttons you can select from to focus on specific tasks like color correction or grading, as well as audio mixing. The effects are all in the filter section. SHOTCUT has a wide range of effects which you can preview in this tiny box at the bottom left. And don't let the minimal appearance fool you. While the basic function is pretty much straightforward, such as moving clips around within the tracks, doing more intermediate tasks, however, will probably be a bit more confusing but doable, especially for beginners. Here's an example. If you want to transform a clip size or to rotate them, you will need to head to the Filters tab. For seasoned video editors, it's not called Transform. No, it's called Size, Position, and Rotate. Thing is, if you type Transform in the search bar of the Filter tab, it will show you the same option. Why doesn't SHOTCUT just call it Transform? To help the less experienced user maybe? Well, only the devs know. There were many situations where I had to look it up online to find out how to do certain things because it's either not where I think it is, had different names, or just required a workaround. So be prepared to repeat this process to find a solution online to pretty much do anything more complicated in SHOTCUT. One situation where it does require a workaround is when I want to hold or freeze frame. In which case, what you will need to do is to export that specific frame that you want to hold as an image file, then re-import that into your timeline. Yeah, not very intuitive. Okay, but if you want to edit a stop motion project, can SHOTCUT read your image as a sequence? The good news is, yes you can. If you're using drag and drop, just remember not to drop it onto your timeline, but your media library or playlist. Unless, of course, you fancy changing duration of each frame one at a time. Simply import and drag and drop the first frame onto the playlist and head to Properties and check the image sequence box. I know it's not the most intuitive and it does elevate a bit of the learning curve, but hey, at least the option is there. There's a lot you can do with SHOTCUT with its built-in tools and filters. However, you'll have to accept the steep learning curve it demands, which is why it barely passes both level 1 and level 2 for me. Because while it's not the most beginner-friendly program out there, and some things does require a workaround, I'm confident that most beginner users can figure out a lot of stuff on their own before needing help from online tutorials or using the handbook that's available in SHOTCUT. Earlier, I note that SHOTCUT has a wide range of effects in the Filters tab, and one of them includes a unique feature in a form of companion software that's integrated with SHOTCUT, Glaxnimate. It's basically a masking program with keyframing that lets you access from a shortcut. I should also note that it's a bit of an advanced feature and not the most easiest tool to use, but the fact that a free and open source software has one is pretty neat. So it earns a pass in our level 3 criteria. Despite SHOTCUT's limitation, using this video editing software in general doesn't feel limited in a number of ways. Maybe the fact that there is a ton of video tutorials and online support when you need them. Having said that though, after spending some amount of time with SHOTCUT, really makes me think outside of the box to solve certain problems from time to time, both technically and creatively, for better or for worse. And to be fair, pretty much all editing software does that to a degree, but SHOTCUT does it more so given its limitation. This really benefits if you're someone who is a beginner getting into the video editing space. And that's it for SHOTCUT. Next, let's move on to KDENLIVE. This video editing software is primarily aimed at Linux platform, but also available in both Windows and Mac OS. Now I have to say that I struggled with the interface when approaching it blind without looking any tutorial or guides about KDENLIVE. You know that Jeff Bridges meme where he is not sure what he's looking at? That basically sums up my first impression. And to be fair, there is a handbook if you're old school, but I'm someone who prefers to learn by trial and error. Despite that, if you're willing to stick with it, you'll find that it's a capable video editing program. Let me explain. After messing around without any instruction and help from online resources, I couldn't wrap my head around with KDENLIVE's many function and base interface. Some functions and components were seemingly familiar to me, but there were many intricate variables to it that made the experience much more difficult. It was clear to me after some time that my usual workflow wasn't going to do it, so I had to change my approach. And to do that, I had to remap most of the interface in KDENLIVE to my preferences and needs that make sense to me. If you're stubborn about that sort of thing, using KDENLIVE's default interface will probably be a hard mode for you. This means I had to look up guides and tutorial videos to figure out the right configuration for me. After the interface change though, using KDENLIVE gets much easier. Unfortunately, not every user will make it past this point. Without looking for any additional instruction and online video guides, I personally found that some of the functions of the interface is incredibly unintuitive for a brand new user. So as far as level 1 go, it didn't make a pass. And for those of you who think that this score is unfair and that you should read all the instruction first before using any tool, I hear you. However, I'm looking at this from the perspective of someone new and probably don't have the patience to sit through looking at handbooks, instruction, and video guide just to put something together that is short and simple, like a video compilation from a holiday or a small clip of a stop motion video. And I think it's completely fair to say that they're not going to find this experience intuitive and might dissuade them from video editing altogether. If you can look past that though, KDENLIVE does get easier to use. But what about image sequence import? On screen is my attempt doing just that with 24 frames. It doesn't automatically recognize it as a sequence with drag and drop. And if you do it this way, you'll have to manually set each duration of the images, which can be tedious. Instead, what you're supposed to do is after selecting your frame rate in the new project, head over to the little box here to import media that says Add Image Sequence. And this will open up another window and choose the appropriate folder to get your image files. Set the frame duration to 1 frame. Is it intuitive? No, not exactly. But it's much less tedious. KDENLIVE can also do some custom masking. It's incredibly simple to draw, which is great. KDENLIVE has proven itself quite capable during my hands-on testing. And because of that, it passes the level 2 check. Before the interface remap though, I discovered that KDENLIVE has features that's not commonly found in many video editing softwares. One such feature is the ability to screen record. It is irrelevant to stop motion, I know, but if you have multiple display and in need to record something on screen, you can simply select one that you like and click the red circle to record. So, how does KDENLIVE compare with other free video editing softwares? Is it good? Is it hard to use? Well, yes and no. Should you use it? I personally found that KDENLIVE is a comprehensive video editing software with a decent number of features for intermediate and advanced user. Despite that though, there are some caveats. Mainly the initial user interface or UI can be extremely confusing, especially for a brand new user. Alright, last one in our list, DaVinci Resolve. This is a popular option with many editors out there. But before we get into it, it is important to know that while I personally didn't encounter any watermarks during my hands-on experience in DaVinci Resolve, it is noted by others that if and when you do use the Studio features, which is the paid version of Resolve, there will be watermarks present. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about giving Resolve a go. As you launch DaVinci Resolve for the first time, you are greeted with a few questions. One of which is if you have used other video editor program before. This should tell you what sort of video editing program is and who it is geared towards. Personally, I'm familiar with Final Cut Pro, so I'm gonna go with that. When you think of a professional grade equipment or tool, you might think there's probably some barrier of entry along with a hefty price tag. But that's not the case here with DaVinci Resolve. It is an accessible program that being it is free, with a lot of what I would consider a professional set of tools to get you going. However, like a lot of professional tools out there, DaVinci Resolve is a complex video editing software and will take some time to learn, some more than others. One example of a complex feature it has over many software is that user will need to work and understand the node-based architecture, which to some might mean a steep increase to the learning curve of DaVinci Resolve. During my early hands-on experience without using any online resources or video tutorials, I got confused very early on when attempt to place footage on the timeline. See, when I saw a horizontal strip with a time code on it, I thought this was the main timeline. Now, if you're familiar with Resolve, you'll probably notice I was on the cutting mode instead of the editing tab. I didn't notice at the time, but this wasn't the main timeline. It was much later when I took a look at video tutorials, I realized I wasn't editing on the editing tab. This experience demonstrates to me how this sort of event can and will confuse and intimidate users who are used to working in a single interface, which many video editing software are. So if you're looking for something that's quick to pick up as you learn because you have a time-sensitive project or something and in need of a free video editing software, DaVinci Resolve might be a tough pick, which is why it doesn't pass our level 1 check, which is mainly for an absolute beginner. Despite saying that, if time isn't an issue and you're willing to stick with it and learn DaVinci Resolve, you'll find it has much to offer in the video editing space and might even consider switching over to its paid version. After understanding how this editing software works in stages, using Resolve is straightforward. Well, mostly. In the first stage, you can drag and drop in the Media tab or onto the timeline in the Editing tab. To make custom masking or any additional visual effects, head to the Fusion tab and under Effects, select whichever tool you need. After applying the mask tool onto the clip, it's basically off to the Color tab to start drawing. And speaking of masking, Resolve offers a precise feather masking if that's something you need. To test this out, I made another clip of Bodykun swinging a sword along with a jump. This is a much more complex than the walking test because it now involves shadow. And if you're someone who prefers image sequence import workflow, DaVinci Resolve makes it somewhat easier for you because you can drag and drop onto Resolve. It does require a tiny bit of setup for Resolve to read it as a single clip in sequence, but if you have a massive stop motion project for whatever reason, it's pretty much a set and forget kind of thing. I can understand why DaVinci Resolve has many high praises. It's good for a lot of projects at any scale, stop motion or not, especially if you're looking to start a feature-length film with stop motion. It offers a great value being that it's free, and if you're looking to do this as a career or just need a more powerful and specialized feature, you can always get their paid version, which is a non-subscription based one-time purchase. Although DaVinci Resolve has a steep learning curve, it's a kind of software that I bet a seasoned editor will have little to no problem building the muscle memory over time quickly with DaVinci Resolve. While it can be intimidating for a beginner, there are plenty of video tutorials and community support that you can find solution whenever you run into any issues. So, which is the best video editing software for stop motion? Well, it really depends who you are, especially what your skill level is. If you're at level 0 and all you know is how to switch on the computer, maybe give it another few more years. AI will probably help you edit videos for you. But if you're level 1 at the beginner level, where you're looking to learn and don't want to be overwhelmed by the confusing windows and interface, well, SHOTCUT is a phenomenal option. It's great for beginners and can handle intermediate tasks as well as some advanced feature like custom masking, which you can eventually take advantage of. And at level 2 and 3, from the enthusiasts all the way to the advanced users that has no problems working with the more professional features and functions, DaVinci Resolve is the most likely best in our list. As an overall package, it is robust and its impressive toolkit makes it incredibly versatile for stop motion projects or otherwise. However, at the end of the day, it is not always about the tool, but how you use it. So if you found a video editing tool that resonates with you best, especially if it's one that mentioned in this video, don't let my take and anyone else's stop you from trying on any of the software. Let me know what you think if you are a regular user of any of the editing software mentioned, and especially let others know if you have encountered problems with any of them. But that's it for now. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. I also want to thank my Patreon supporter, and if you want to support the channel, you can do so at Patreon or be a channel member. And if you have another video editing software in mind that you want to put to a similar test, I've left a link down in the description to the same test footage in this video as a video file, as well as image sequencing files. Not sure what to watch next? Check out how I made this tiny sword that was used in this video. Or check out the previous video that was edited on a potato machine that inspired this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.